Question. I want to make way for Peter King, joining us on loan from NBC Sports and the columnist Football Morning in America. Peter, thanks for joining us. Let me start with Russell Wilson and what you think he was trying to say yesterday, and did he get his message across?
Well, Dan, Russell Wilson the fact that he spoke out and mentioned how often he's been sacked, and he's mentioned those kind of things to you, he never talks about that, ever. All he talks about is, I love my offensive line. They're playing their rear ends off. They're great. I love them. The fact that he mentions that, it's not to say you guys stink. It's to tell the front office, John Schneider, Pete Carroll, I want to be protected better. It's not right and it's not fair that I'm not protected better. That's his view. Now, I'm sure that Pete and I'm sure that the coaches and John Schneider might look at the tape and say, you hold on to the ball too long. Yeah. You know, you take too many desperado chances. Throw the ball in the first row of the bleachers sometimes, and or throw it more often there. But Dan, this to me was about Russell Wilson saying, going to the Super Bowl on Sunday night. I saw one shot of him. It's funny, when you're at the Super Bowl, which I was, you don't watch TV, so you don't see what anybody sees. I did see one shot of him, and I'll tell you what, he just looked like he ate a turd sandwich. I mean, he was totally this one shot. Yeah. He was just miserable. Yeah, and he doesn't want to be at the Super Bowl unless he's playing in it. And I just think this is a guy who's at the midpoint of his career and looks at Tom Brady and says, man, why can't I go into a place where the offense is set up for the next 2 or 3 years to maybe win multiple Super Bowls? We're not. And again, I'm totally putting words in Russell Wilson's mouth. I haven't talked to him. I'm just saying what I heard when he talked to you yesterday.
Yeah, I wonder what Seattle does. I wonder what front office or Pete Carroll have to say whenever they get in front of the media.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. I do know that, look, I think John Schneider is a great general manager. Not a good one. He's great. But he hasn't drafted great on the offensive line. Yeah. He hasn't solved the offensive line long term. It's just like Belichick and receivers. John and offensive line, it just really hasn't worked. And again, I'm sure that there are issues that I don't understand, okay, because I'm not there every day. But, I do think now, especially, they got a new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. He hasn't called plays, I don't think, before, to the best of my knowledge. And so, they're counting on sort of the Sean McVay way to work. And I don't know if it's going to work. We'll see. But I sensed dissatisfaction in Russell Wilson that I haven't heard before.
The Eagles situation is a hot mess. Like, this is a soap opera, a local soap opera there, Pete, because I get the feeling the Colts and the Bears might be interested, but not at the asking price. And it feels like the Eagles are asking too much for Carson Wentz. And now you've made Carson walk the plank. He doesn't want to go back where he's not appreciated. Now where does he go? And if you're the Colts or the Bears, what do you really want to offer a guy that you also have to take his salary on as well?
I can tell you that there are people in the NFL. There are of the 31 other teams, without being too specific, that are very interested in Carson Wentz, but very interested at a reasonable price. Okay. And what I mean by that is nobody really knows what's reasonable. I quoted a team official this week that after Matthew Stafford, what is a logical price right now for a quarterback? We don't know. I mean, 2 1s and a 3, even though the 1s are in the future. But I also think this, Dan, about Carson Wentz. With Matthew Stafford, you sort of know what you're getting.
Yeah.
With Carson Wentz, you have no idea what you're getting. In 2017, he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. In 2018 and 19, pretty good. 2020, an abject disaster. Charges that he's he doesn't like to be coached. I'm not saying uncoachable. It didn't take coaching very well. Was at odds with Doug Peterson, and all this stuff. He hasn't done enough in this game to be difficult to work with. He just hasn't. So if you're a team right now, what do you want to pay for him? Really? What do you want to pay for Carson Wentz? If I were the Colts or the Bears have the 20th pick, Colts have the 21st pick, I'd pay that. But if you want to get much beyond that, I'd say, no thanks. I'll draft somebody and take my chances.
But is there more upside with Carson Wentz or more downside with Carson Wentz if you pick him up?
You have to believe, if you're Frank Reich, the last time Frank Reich was in the building every day with Carson Wentz, he was pure gold. As a player before he got hurt and being coached and everything. I think Frank Reich would love to coach Carson Wentz again. He told me on my podcast about a month ago, I love Carson Wentz. And so I think he would love, and believe, don't get into the whole tampering thing. Because he said, look, I can't say anything about it, but all I can say is, having been with him, I love the guy and I'll always love him. But I do think, Dan, even though he loves him, and I've certainly not talked to him about this, even though he loves him, he's got to have some skepticism, okay, about what exactly he's doing.
Talking to Peter King, NBCSports.com columnist, Football Morning in America. All quiet on the Deshaun Watson front, Pete. Is that good or bad?
Dan, I just think that Nick Caserio does not want probably the biggest decision he ever makes if he decides to trade him. I as I wrote a week or so ago, I don't mean to be morbid, but you don't want the second paragraph in your obit to be, here's the guy who traded Deshaun Watson. You want your professional reputation to be that he fought like hell to keep Deshaun Watson. It worked, and they were a good franchise. That's what Nick Caserio wants. And I'm sure that's what David Culley wants. But this is an organization that is adrift, totally, absolutely adrift. And when I look at it, Dan, if I had to guess right now, I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be, unless there's a civil war, I don't think he's going to be traded by the draft. I think they're going to say, you play with us or you don't play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like we're in the minority that Deshaun, it's wishful reporting. Like we want him to move someplace else. It gives us something to talk about. But I think if you're the Texans, unless somebody blows you away, you just say, no, you're our quarterback. We gave you this extension, and you know what? We're going to ride with you, die with you. Let me leave you with this, because we, of course, have to somehow work the Cowboys in this, with the hype video that didn't include Dak Prescott. Peter, what do you make of this?
I don't know. I'm 63 years old, Dan. I don't care. I guess I should care. People look for clues. Dan, you know what? When I first got in this business and covered the Cincinnati Bengals, you know what I did in the offseason? For a while anyway, I covered college basketball. I covered the Reds as a backup beat writer and everything like that. I wasn't Bengals 24/7, the problem is now you've got newspapers and websites with 3 beat people 365 days a year, studying, looking for signs, doing all this stuff. And sometimes I'm sure that deep down there's some meeting, like the Cowboys don't know absolutely for sure if Dak Prescott's going to be on the team. I guess that would be the explanation. But honestly, I think any thought that Dak Prescott is not going to be on the team seems utterly preposterous. He's the most popular athlete right now in the state of Texas. And I can't imagine that the Cowboys would be actively considering not bringing him back, even if it's on that onerous second franchise tag.
Drew Brees set to join you guys on Football Night in America, NBC Sports. Do you know anything about this?
I'll be the last one to know. You'll have him on the show, and he'll say I'm announcing it. But Dan, I think there's no way he's playing next year. You look at, Jay Glazer, for him to say something like that, it isn't a dirty little secret. So, I mean, he knows the Saints like the Dayton Flyers. I mean, like he knows them a lot. And for him to say that this is his last game, it's his last game. So in my opinion, I think they're just waiting for the right time to really celebrate the life and times of Drew Brees. And my feeling is he's probably going to be on the NBC set, in August or September. But, that's just my gut feeling.
What do you expect to happen to the Chiefs in the offseason?
Well, I think one of the things, if I were them, one of the things I would really try to do is pay a little bit more attention to the offensive line, because it looks like they were look, you could say this about a lot of teams, but they were 2 injuries away from absolute disaster. So they've got to backstop their line. I think you'll see Andy Reid, who always pays attention to both lines, both in free agency and the draft. I bet on the first 2 days of the draft, they draft 2 tackles. That's just my gut feeling. Andy will pay attention to this offensive line, and well, he should. My guess is that Sammy Watkins probably won't be back, but the rest of the team, I think, mostly is going to be back intact.
Did you vote on the Super Bowl MVP?
I did. I voted for Brady.
Was there any consideration given to anybody else?
Definitely so. At the start of the fourth quarter, I wasn't voting for Brady. I was going to vote for Shaq Barrett if the game was 3 quarters long. And then in the fourth quarter, it got all cloudy, because here comes Ndamukong Suh making 2 or 3 big plays. Here comes the rest of their defense. Devin White all over the field. My second choice, I voted for Brady. We had to vote with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We could change, but we had to vote with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I voted for Brady, but at the very end, I thought very hard about Devin White. And then, he had that late interception. I have some regrets, but not a lot. I mean, Tom Brady was efficient. And plus, here's what it also is, Dan. Tom Brady, think about his value to this team. Why did they really win the Super Bowl? Why? Because Tom Brady came. Tom Brady remade the mental makeup of that team. Tom Brady coached players all through the season. And, Tom Brady also brought the kind of unselfishness. Bruce Arians talked to me about it after the game. Rob Gronkowski, never once. I mean, he had a game where he had 0 catches. Hey, Rob, you okay? Yeah, coach, I'm good. And so he brought that ethos. Forget what the numbers are. Forget what the stats are. When Devin White in December was complaining about not making the Pro Bowl, he said, hey, D, we're in this for a bigger bowl. And so, shut up about your Pro Bowl. Who cares? So I don't feel bad about voting for him at all. It was very close. The defense probably was more significant in this one game, but who on the defense,
We're going to make a hype video for you, Pete.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
And, you've got to, if you do make a hype video for me, just make sure you say I'm 63 years old and I don't care about that stuff. So please do that.
Thank you, Pete. Good to talk to you again.
All right, Dan, you take care.
That's Peter King, NBCSports.com columnist and Football Morning in America.